All right, so I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphones just so we don't get any background noise, and then we're just going to get rolling here. So I wanted to thank everybody for hopping in today. This is our Why Your Real Estate Team Isn't Working and What Actually Builds High Performance Teams. It's our webinar that we're putting on with John Mikesh. John is kind enough to join us from Bozeman, Montana today. But that's not where John is from. John's got actually a really cool story. He's built piles and piles of real estate teams and businesses for people and coach people and mentors people. And so, John, why don't we just start there? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and your story and how you got to where you are right now? And we'll just kick it off that way.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I started real estate in 2002 in upstate New York. So I guess that makes me kind of a grandpa in this industry at this point, which is crazy. It went by in like a blink of an eye. Grew up in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountain area, Hudson Valley, and was invited into this business. Actually, a guy saw something in me that I didn't really know or think about in myself. And he said, I think you'd be really great at real estate. So on that vote of confidence, I got into the business and started January of 2002 and became rookie of the year in my MLS that first year and was like, hey, maybe I am pretty good at this. I just found it to be a natural fit for like who I was, my personality. And I found out that I really loved kind of helping people solve that housing puzzle, like, you know, what's the best house for them based on their needs. And did that for a few years in New York and then married my high school sweetheart. And we decided that we wanted to get out of where we were from, the small town area that we were from, and move down south to North Carolina, to the land of opportunity as we saw it at that point. We were like, man, there's so many houses down here. There's so much going on. And it's affordable too, which was like really crazy. And we said, hey, we're going to go down here. So we got married in 2006, went on our honeymoon, came back from our honeymoon and moved directly to Huntersville, North Carolina. So this is like November of 2006. So before I could even get my feet under me in a brand new market where I didn't know anybody, where I quite honestly, like I had a maybe a higher opinion of my abilities than I should have at that point, a false sense of confidence, if you will. And I found myself in this new market, like trying to sell houses to families and kids with car seats. And that was not the norm where I grew up in New York. It was like mostly weekender homes, people coming out of the city. So in this new market that I found myself in North Carolina, I was just starting to figure out, okay, this is what I got to do. And then 2007 happened, right? We all know what happened in 2007. Yeah. The market got taken out from under us. Ken, were you selling real estate in 2007?
I got my license as the market was crashing in 2007. So
wow.
And our market here was actually in a tailspin prior to the global crisis because oil had already started crashing about a year before the stock market did. And we're an oil town. So the peak of our market was September 2007 or July 2007. And I got my license in September of 2007. So the market was already tailing by the time I got a license.
Wow. Yeah, so when I started in real estate, I started with a mom and pop in New York. So when I went down to North Carolina, I was like, man, I need a company like the one I came from. So I found a mom and pop company, a little independent real estate company, and I was like, hey, I'm here to work and I'm here to show up. And I got my first taste of like what was a type of a team that I didn't want to be a part of. And this team, the way it worked is basically like the owner was in production, the owner's wife was in production. And then they had some agents that had been with them a long time and they kind of got like the first round of good leads and then it would tail off to like the next agents and the next agents. Well, I was the lowest man on a totem pole, so I didn't get anything. And it was really challenging for me. And I did get one very important thing out of that experience with them though. I got invited to go to a real estate seminar, first seminar I'd ever been to. I didn't know what real estate coaching was at the time. I had never been experienced anything like that. And I was sort of like struggling to get my foothold, you know, figuring out like, am I going to fail at this? Like as a new husband, as a new area, like, am I going to make it? And I went to this conference and for the first time I saw a clear path, a path I could follow to get predictable, scalable results. And I went all in on coaching and, you know, really started to propel my business, understood that I didn't need anybody to produce leads for me, that I could generate my own leads if I followed these systems. And that took me from that mom and pop company to Remax because the compensation structure was more in line for somebody that was producing their own business. I was a little scared, I'm not going to lie. I was like, man, this is a big monthly fee that I have to pay. But if I'm successful, I get to keep 95% of my commission, which at that juncture was a big difference because I was on a 50-50 at the other company.
I was going to ask that. What were your splits on that team? And were you paying brokerage fees on top of your splits?
Yeah, it always been 50-50 before I went to Remax. So like in New York, I was 50-50. And then when I went down to North Carolina, I was 50-50. And I was all about, that compensation, structure, as long as they were giving me opportunities that can convert to leads. Because I saw my friends at other companies and like they might have been on a better split, but they weren't getting any opportunities. And, back in those days in like the early to mid 2000s, maybe a good split was like a 80-20 or a 70-30. And that was also getting no opportunities. So things have gotten a lot more competitive as of lately with different models that have come on the scene. But back then that was kind of the landscape, and Remax was like the most amount of money you could keep. So I went to Remax, became a top producer with them, following the strategies that I implemented through my coaching, and started to build a team. Really started to build a team out of necessity. It was like, hey, I was generating more than I could handle. And I was starting to do a lot of short sales, a lot of listings, a lot of foreclosure business, which as you know, Ken, being around that time, like that's what generated all the buyer leads, right? Like all the buyers that were in the market at that point, they wanted a deal.
Yeah.
And so by working with the the different, mortgage entities and, working with different banks and getting their listings, like you would get, I would get 50, 60 people at an open house without even trying, because it would be like, hey, this house that sold for, $1 million, 3 years ago and is basically in brand new condition, and you can have it for 320,000. And it was like, that was a reality in our market.
Yeah.
So we were crushing it with that. And, I was at the Lake Norman market. So a lot of waterfront properties, people looking for waterfront deals, knowing that, hey, I'm going to move there. I'm going to retire there. If I can get a foreclosure deal today, even if I'm not planning on moving there for 2 years, like this makes sense for me. So we did a lot of that, grew my team. I was with Remax for 5 years, hit every award they have, Hall of Fame, Lifetime Achievement, all of that. And ultimately got to a place where we were doing so much volume that the 5% that I was paying and, the franchise royalty fees, like they were starting to impact my ability to grow and scale my business further. It was well over 6 figures at that point. And I just said, what if I had that money back to build something that I think could really benefit my agents? So that was really where, we really leaned in and took our team building to another level. We built an independent company. I believed in the independent model, like wholeheartedly. I was like, and I was doing something, Ken, that I feel like was very different at that point. Most teams in my area that I was in the teams were, Ken Riegel team, John Mikesh team. And I didn't want that. I actually built my independent company to be an entity that looked like a brokerage and was a brokerage, but that ran like a team on the inside. And I wanted all the anonymity so that my agents could build themselves up at this brand and not feel like they were in the shadow of another brand. So one of the things that I did was I leaned on my past experience of what I didn't like about teams. I didn't like, cherry picking and getting the leftover scraps. So I built a team where once you were on the team and you were up to speed, it was equal opportunity. Nobody got special treatment, and I didn't compete with any of them, meaning I didn't do any production at all. And that was my goal. So what do I see not working in teams? I see a lot of teams where, and it's not right or wrong, the team leaders in production. And as the company grows and stalls and stagnates, which all companies go through cycles, even the very best ones, where they're growing, they're stalling, they're dying, they're growing, they're stalling, they're dying. Like it's just the natural ebb and flow of business. But what happens so often is that the team leaders of those entities jump back into production in a more significant fashion when they're stagnating or stalling or declining, which then further compounds the effects of the agents on that team and what they're actually getting as far as opportunities. So I made an all-in commitment that I wasn't going to be involved in production at all, despite what people were telling me, despite what my coaches were. And I was like, I'm going to create the very best opportunity that I can for agents. And they're going to work at my team because nobody else in my marketplace is going to offer this package like I was. And I did. And it was very successful. And we grew very quickly. My challenge was that I would get agents in and they would become so successful in a period of 3 to 5 years that they would hit that ceiling that like, well, where can I go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Running an independent brokerage with a team model, we're limited, right? We're limited by our geographic market. We're limited by, marketing, ad returns, things like that. And ultimately, the agents would come up and they would become students of my program. And they would say, John, ultimately what I want is what you have. Like, I want to be out of production. I want to have a team that's leveraged. And I want to be able to do all these things like you're doing. And that became my Achilles heel. And ultimately agents would come in and they would leave and they would start their own thing. And it didn't matter if they made more money than they were making on my team. They would still want that natural like progression, that ladder.
Sure. Yeah, that's the cycle of the team, right? Like that's one of the things that's so tough about teams is that you bring people in, you train them, and then they leave. And you're in this perpetual cycle of training and leaving and training and leaving. And that can be a real burn. Like I feel like this is a coaching call for us.
You went on mute, Ken.
How about now?
Well,
I don't know what's going on with my mic here. Give me a second.
That mic is so sensitive. I have that same mic, and there's so many times I've touched it, and it just hits that mute button on it.
Hang on here. Let's go this way. Hello now. Can you hear me?
No, you still sound. I can hear you, but you still sound echoey, like in the distance.
How about that? I killed this mic. Okay, so let's get rid of that. So, that's the ebb and flow of most teams, right? And we're guilty of it too. We're back into a cycle where our market is dying. So I'm back into production now. I'm
Sure.
back in. So it's part of the deal when it comes to team. And I think it's one of the hardest things for team leaders too, is how do you avoid that? How do you get out? So when you were starting, I'm gonna double back on a lot of the stuff that you said here. So I want to go back to who was the coach and what coaching system showed you the way to get out of that mom and pop shop and move over to Remax? What was the coaching system that actually worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, going way back to those days, it was Craig Proctor for me. That was my first experience with coaching.
I was going to ask you, I did Proctor too, so I was wondering if it was Proctor back then.
And the reason I went to Remax was because, I was 100% coachable. I was all in. I remember distinctly coming back from that conference, and I went to the conference. We drove down to Orlando from Charlotte, and it was me and two guys from my office. And, we kind of shared expenses and carpooled down. And on the way back, they were like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. And I was just like, guys, like, why would we not just do everything they told us to do exactly the way they told us to do it? Because obviously, like, our own thought processes and what we're trying to do didn't work. Like, this is where we are. So they kind of went the pick and choose model, and I went the all in model, and all in to the point where, like, Craig was with Remax, so I was with Remax the next day. And that I found that to work for me, like from a coaching student standpoint. Like, if I go all in and I emulate the person that I'm following, I should be able to get the same or similar results of that person. And that served me very well.
And so then, you've been with Craig Proctor. I'm sure there's other guys that I actually know of that you've, taken stuff from, and over your 20-year plus career, are you still doing some of the stuff, like the foundational stuff that Craig taught you, and then you've added in all of these other things over time? Or would you say you've completely abandoned that and shifted gears over that 20-year period?
Man, that's a really good question. I don't know that there's anything that I still do in my business today that was like a direct thing like I learned from Craig. What I learned from Craig served me in that season, in that moment. And I learned lead generation and lead response. So, like, how to put a piece of marketing out and get a response to that marketing and then convert that response into a client. So I learned that game really well. I also learned the importance of having a database that you work out of, so that you're not like a 24/7 Pop-Tart agent, but that you're actually focused on, like, these are the tasks I need to do based on what I've told the system to tell me to do. And I can operate out of that and have my sanity. So when I close my laptop at the end of the night, I know I did everything I needed to do to move my business forward. Then from there, I coached with everybody really that was significant in the industry at the time. I worked with Kinder Reese back when they were Kinder Reese. Then they became NAEA. I went through that whole program. I worked with, Brian Moses. I worked with Danny Griffin. I worked with the core. And look, here's what I found about my coaching journey. Sometimes you learn exactly who you want to be, and you see somebody who's where you want to go, and you emulate them to get there. Other times you learn about a different way to do this business, and you realize that maybe that's not who I want to be at the end of my journey. Maybe that ladder's not leaning up against the right building. Because I'll just bring you right back to today. I was literally having a conversation with a guy yesterday, and I know this person. I know them deeply. They're a friend of mine, a close personal acquaintance, and I know who he's coaching with right now. And I said, hey man, just because they can get a result doesn't mean it's the right result for you. And what I was trying to help him understand is, like, look, there's this new, like, hustle and grind culture, and that's awesome if that's you. But if that's not you, your ladder's leaning against the wrong building, and you're going to be unhappy when you get to the top of that ladder. Like, I was always the guy that was willing to sacrifice the trophy for the end goal that I was really after, which was freedom. So like, I see a lot of guys that are chasing number one and they want to be top in their state or their country. And like, kudos to you if that's authentic to who you are and you're willing to sacrifice everything that needs to be sacrificed to attain that prize. But if that's not really your goal and you can get honest with yourself and know why you're building this business, I mean, that's the key to a successful team. Is like, when I look under the hood, I'm like, can you explain to me what we've got going on here? Like,
Right.
What engine is this? What modifications have you put on it? Like, what is under the hood of this thing? And is this thing even designed to take you where you want to go? Because if you're trying to get around a track as fast as possible, maybe you've got an F1 car. But if you try to take an F1 car to the Mojave Desert, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And
tires are a little too slick for that.
This happens all the time. So, hey, kudos to you, Ken, on being top 10 in Canada. I saw that the other day. That's awesome.
Cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, we're, we are, I would say we're part of that hustle and grind culture, but that's who we are. And we've always been that. And we were hustle and grind before hustle and grind was cool. But we're also chasing freedom at the same time. And that's a big reason why we're on this call with you today too, is for me to learn some other stuff as well from a guy that I respect a ton. So why don't we go that way? The title of this webinar is Why Your Real Estate Team Isn't Working. What are you seeing today in real estate teams with all these people that you are connected to? Because you're connected to a lot of people in the platform that you're in right now, and you help a lot of people. Like, how many people do you have in your organization right now?
Close to 3,000 now.
That's crazy. And you are a resource for those people to reach out to and use if they want to take advantage of that. So when you're talking to all of these people, a lot of them team leaders, what are you seeing that is not working today? What are the big mistakes that agents and team leaders are making today that is stopping them from reaching that freedom goal?
Yeah. So what gives birth to teams more often than not is production. So like, an agent becomes successful at doing the thing, therefore they have an overflow of opportunity, and the byproduct of that is a team. And if you've ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, it talks about why most businesses fail. And I think it parallels this conversation of team leaders. So in The E-Myth, it talks about, hey, most businesses start by somebody who's a technician, somebody doing the thing that becomes good at doing the thing, and they therefore create a business, and they think that because they're good at doing the thing, they'll have a good business. But what's challenging about that is that in a business, there's actually three hats that need to be worn: the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. So when I look at businesses and I just say, okay, what's the most common reason that businesses fail? It's a lack of leadership. And the lack of leadership comes in the form of they forget to wear the appropriate hat for the role they're in. Meaning they're a producer that becomes a team leader that forgets to take their producer hat off and become the manager and the entrepreneur of that business. And because they never become the manager of the entrepreneur of the business, they never actually hold people accountable in the way that's going to serve them, because to them, that's taking time away from their production because they haven't taken that hat off. And they never actually become the entrepreneur who builds out the vision and the scalable systems that business needs to thrive. So that's a lot. So let me unpack it in practical terms for people so they can take something tactical away from this. When I explore a conversation with a team leader, and I have over 200 team leaders in my organization, so I talk to a lot of team leaders all the time, and they'll be like, John, this isn't working, or like, our production's down $1 million year to date. And I identify what's going on. I always go back to the systems conversation. Well, are you generating that much less leads this year? To which the response will often be deer in the headlights. Well, what do you mean? And I'll be like, well, how many leads do you typically generate per month? And if they can't answer that question, it's because they're never in the managerial or entrepreneurial positions. They're only in the production position. And they're trying to lead production for their team, which is lead by example is important, but they're not doing the things that are actually going to serve their agents at scale. If we don't know how many leads we're getting per month, and we can't have a correlation and a conversation between leads generated and leads converted, where are we going with this conversation? I mean, we're literally like we're in a boat with no sail. We're in a boat with no engine. We're just hoping that it gets to the destination, and hope's not a strategy. So we've got to break our business down into components. And then, accountability is a huge thing. I see teams that think they have culture and all they have is a rising tide, meaning they've had a market that's been up the last few years, and everybody's happy and they think they have culture. Well, what happens when the market tightens or goes down? All of a sudden, the culture evaporates. What good culture does is good culture thrives regardless of whether there's a storm or there's a sunny sky, because they operate on a set of standards that generate around a system that allow them to know if they're winning. And what's amazing is you can actually be winning in a down market. You can actually be winning if your income is down, because your income might be down, but that might be a reflection of the overall market. But if you're executing and you know what you're doing for lead generation, lead conversion, appointments set, appointments had, and you've signed people to buy your agency, and you know what all of those measurements are because you track them and you're accountable to them, you can still be winning even when your business is down. And that's just going to prepare you so when that business picks up as an industry, you're going to win tenfold over everybody else.
So you would say that a lot of the issues with teams today then is the tracking, the accountability, and we'll call them KPIs. That's something most people know is key performance indicators. So you've mentioned that lead flow and then percentage of lead conversion would be probably your number one KPI. Is that what I'm hearing here? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. So we track 7 things. So we track leads, we track contact, we tracked appointment set, appointment had, agency signed, follow up, which is only for people that are agency signed that are not under contract, and then under contract. When we followed those 7 things and nothing else, we had extreme focus and clarity. So like, side note, when somebody's struggling, it's usually because they've lost clarity. They're somebody else got in their head, and then now they're trying this, and a new platform came out, so they're trying that platform, and all of a sudden in a 6 to 12 month period of time, their business is down because they've lost focus and they've lost clarity. I tracked those 7 things for decades. So when an agent and I had a conversation, and let's just say this agent's struggling, I could have a pinpointed conversation with the agent, and I knew exactly where the problem was. See, most of us as team leaders, we don't have a system, and we don't have tracking, and we don't have accountability. And by the way, guys, that's the norm. You're in the exception if you have those things in place. So if we don't have tracking, accountability, and systems, we sit down and we have coffee with an agent and we go like this. So tell me what's going on. And the agent proceeds to give you a line of BS because they're not getting honest with themselves or with you. And it's about, my mom, and it's about my sister, and it's about these external conditions. But if we have a conversation and we have tracking in that conversation, and I can pull out a piece of paper and I can say, hey, before we get into everything, let me just go through this with you. I noticed that you had, really strong lead flow. We delivered 30 leads to you last month. You had an additional 15 that you put in. So you had 45 leads last month, but you didn't even get in touch with 2 of those. What's going on? Like, show me your time blocks for your prospecting. Like, if you can't contact these leads, you're never going to convert them to appointments to clients down the road. So it's so easy to find the hole in their boat. Or we say, okay, you've had good lead flow and you've had good contact rate, but you're not setting appointments. What are you saying to these people? And we can role play that. I could have more effective 15-minute coffees with my agents than most team leaders will have with their agents over a year's worth of communication, because there is no clarity to that conversation.
For sure. Okay. So number one thing, tracking 100%. And then, so tracking being the thing. Let's talk about lead gen a little bit, because there's different styles of businesses and different business structures. I mean, we come from a referral based background. So most of the leads we get are referrals. That's just how we built our business from the industry that I came from before real estate was a database marketing style industry. And that's what I took and implemented into real estate, and found a coach that actually spoke that language and followed that system. So we didn't really dive into the online lead thing until a lot later. And it's just not something that we use as a primary lead driver. So talk to me about lead flow and lead generation strategies and things like that are actually working today, because that world has changed a ton too in the past 5-6 years even. What are the effective lead generation strategies that you're seeing teams using today to get that lead flow so that they can say to their agents, hey, we've given you 30 leads, you've done this. What's working for teams today?
So it doesn't matter to me what your lead source is. So I know people that work by referral only. I know people that work by online leads only. I know people that, have Zillow Flex teams. Like, whatever your top of funnel strategy is, that's your top of funnel strategy. Where people go off the rails, they're trying to do too many things, because they're like, hey, so-and-so is doing good with this, and so-and-so did that. And they're trying too many things. I always say you need to pick 1, 2, or 3 things. And you need to go a mile deep on those 3 things and be world-class at those 3 things before you add anything else. So let's just take referrals. So like, it's cool if you work by referral, but what is your actual lead generation approach to that referral database? You've got to be making consistent calls. You've got to have a 60 touch program. You've got to be doing events. Like, there's things that go in. And look, when you look at lead generation, there's free, which means high time. It takes a lot of your time if it's free. And then there's high cost, which often takes none of your time. So if we think of the spectrum, we can think of free as door knocking, high time, high cost of your time, free in the sense that you're not paying for the leads. And then we can think of high cost as Zillow Flex, highest cost in the industry, but like literally it'll just make it rain in your inbox. I think referral business is the best business. And I've always approached my lead generation strategy as like a 3-prong. It's like, hey, listen, I need to get leads today. I need to serve those leads well so that I can build my database. And then I need to nurture my database for repeat clients and referrals. Like, to the extent that I do that is the extent of how well I'm going to do in this career over time. Now, if you've already got a database and you're nurturing that and you're working that, you're still putting time and effort into to nurture that. I see with the 200 plus team leaders that I work with, I see a blend of really good database and referral for the ones that are doing well. They get a presence in their market and they have a farming strategy around that presence. And then they do online leads to supplement and help new agents get off the ground. A lot has changed in the industry, but some of the things that I think are still working and have worked very closely to how they worked 10 years ago and 20 years ago is, direct marketing and online leads. So like farming and online leads. Hey, the conversion percentage of those, if you work them really well, may only be 1%, but I can show an agent how to consistently do 2 to 3 deals per year. And when I go back to that team model, not the production model, and I'm like, all right, to be a good team leader, I need to be able to show somebody a pathway of success to get from where they are to where they want to be. And maybe where they want to be is, I need to get 1 deal a month consistently. What does that look like? Great. I'll show you how to spend 10 hours per week prospecting the leads that I'll provide for you to get to one per month. But then if you want to get to 2 to 3 a month, we're going to look like this. So it really comes down to, who are you? Where are you? Like, are you a new agent or are you an experienced agent that already has a group of people? I just launched 2 brand new agents that came from the new construction realm into residential brokerage, and they're coming in with databases of 500 people that they've already worked with on the new construction side. So like, obviously we're going database with them. We're not focusing on online leads, but if you just moved to Bozeman and you got your license last month and you don't know anybody, like I was when I was in North Carolina, you better have an online lead generation strategy that's going to give you opportunities that you can convert to clients so you can build that database up down the road.
For sure. Okay, cool. So when we're talking about online leads, like what in your mind is an online lead today? Because there's a million different ways to classify online leads. Is it organic, social? I mean, there's a lot of influencers now in the Instagram world and the TikTok world. Like, there's a lot of realtors dancing in showers right now in my feed. Not my thing, but there's a lot of realtors doing that. And obviously there's some realtors doing it. They must be getting some success out of that. Then there's also the Google pay-per-click. Like if we're talking spectrums, it's dancing in showers on TikTok all the way to still using Google pay-per-click. And in the middle of all of that, we've got Facebook ads, we've got Instagram ads, we've got LinkedIn ads, So when we talk about on YouTube, like YouTube influencing too to get leads, what is working in that online world now? Is it still traditionally Google pay-per-click is the number one thing to do, or is it a mix of all of those things now when we talk about online?
Yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, I think it's changing right now. I think that what you're gonna see over the next few short years is that where Google online pay-per-click has been a staple, we're going to see that morph into answer engine optimization. So how are you coming up in the searches on chat and different AI platforms? So that's already happening right now at a very fast rate. The best systems out there are going to help you with all of those. So I've always been one that's willing to invest in a system to let people who are experts at a certain thing do that thing so that I can focus on what I'm good at, which is converting leads and getting face-to-face with clients and converting them into clients. And I can teach that. When it comes to dancing on TikTok and things like that, it's never really been a focus of mine because that's a production hat focus, meaning that's something that will produce for you if you're the right type of person and you have a charismatic personality. But if we're being honest with ourselves, that's not a scalable solution for everybody. And what I mean by that is I've seen people that have been very successful for that, and I've watched other people copy the exact strategy, but because they're not charismatic or they don't look a certain way or sound a certain way or do things a certain way, the same exact strategy produces no results for this other person copying it. I'm more interested in the thing I can copy and get a predictable result because I follow the system. So that's just the core freedom in me. And when I look at things, I look at scalable solutions. One thing that I think is a hybrid, that if I was saying, okay, it's going to start with me, like I need to get my production up. And then I ultimately want to turn this into a team and be able to provide opportunities to team members and scale that way. I would really look hard at YouTube. I don't think there's a better investment of our time where we can put something in today and get a result, next year, 3 years, 10 years down the road from a piece of content we created today. So it's a heavy lift. It takes time to get off the ground. But if you look at anybody who's implemented a YouTube strategy, like a defined way of doing that business, I know Jesse Dow's got an amazing program for YouTube. You could hit him up. Anybody who follows that, you'll see a direct and correlated spike in their business. And that type of business can produce a lead generation system that you can feed your team with.
Awesome. So, okay. So then let's pivot a little bit to the second half of the title of this webinar. So it's why your real estate team isn't working. We've talked a little bit about that. And then and what actually builds high performance teams. So let's go that route. So we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting, I'm guessing here, and some strategies around recruiting. You've mentioned culture a little bit. In your mind, because how many teams have you built now? You've built them in several different cities, because now you're in Bozeman, you're not in North Carolina anymore. Different cities, different realms in real estate. There's the mortgage side as well as the real estate side that you've been involved in. What is actually the way to build a high performance team from the ground up, starting at zero? You're an agent that has got too much production. You got to unload some stuff. What is the way to do it?
So I'm building my 5th team right now. And, in the beginning, I was kind of figuring things out. I'm like, well, I like this piece. I like that piece. I don't like this piece, and kind of bolting this thing together. And then in 2012, I came across Traction by Gino Wickman. And Traction EOS as it's known, is an entrepreneurial operating system or entrepreneurial operating software. And it's a program for building teams. And what that did is it synthesized everything that I had learned in a way that was like, I could get my arms around. I'm like, this is a complete system. And I would never run any team or business on anything but that system. That's literally the way. If I can't build it in a Traction way, I'm not interested in building it. And one of the things that Traction starts with is what's called a vision traction organizer. And that's a 1-page sheet or a 1-page strategic plan that helps you get clear on your purpose, your mission or your vision, what is your goal, and what are the KPIs, as you said earlier, that's going to get me to that goal. in a immediate, like 30, 60, 90 day and 1 year goal vision. So that's the thing that has to be at the beginning of every plan, is you've got to have a vision on what you're doing and be clear about it. Because if we're going to have a high performance team, we're never going to bring in high performance players unless we can articulate a clear path of what we're building and how they can step into that plan and build for themselves. Because when people are confused, they don't take action. So back to your comment about recruiting, the only way to recruit somebody, in my opinion, is to have a clear path on how you can help them go from where they are to where they want to be, and articulate that path in a way that's more clear and more compelling than anybody else. Time and time again, people would join my real estate team, even though I was the most expensive place in town, because I would bring them in on a piece of marketing, so lead generation, and the marketing would say, hey, come work for me, and you'll make $100,000 in your pocket guaranteed, or I'll pay the difference. Now, understand that, like, I was running that guarantee in a time where the average sale price in our market was sub $300,000. And I was retaining 65% of the gross margin, which means they were getting 35% of the commission. Most expensive place in town, but best guarantee. And the evidence of success were in the results, and my agents were making more than any agents on any teams in that market. So it's less about the split. Like, we think that just because we have a split, we have alignment. The splits don't create alignment. The results create alignment. The results create culture. When agents are winning, that's when you have culture. You can be everybody's best friend on your team, but if everybody's failing and losing and not paying their bills, you will not have any culture.
Awesome. So, okay. So traction, EOS, number one, that's the biggest thing. And then let's talk about support for your agents now. As you're building your fifth team, what is it today that agents are looking for? If it's not about split, if it's not about those sorts of things, when you're recruiting agents to come to your new team, what is it that agents are looking for today? Is it immediate business? Is it the support? Is it the coaching? Is it more money in their pocket based on what they're paying out to a brokerage and to a team? Because you're not an independent brokerage, are you? Your new team is not that, is it? You're a team within a brokerage, correct?
Yeah, so my team is run on the EXP platform because that allows me to give the most amount of value to the agents that come work with me, and it removes that glass ceiling, that proverbial dead end of the journey. And it provides both an insurance package for me as the team leader, that when they outgrow my team, which is my hope for them, by the way, and I'm probably the only team leader or broker that's saying, hey, I want you to come in and I want to help you at this stage of your journey so that you can soar beyond me. I'm the only one having those conversations with them, and this platform gives me the ability to do that. But what people come to me right now today, what I'm seeing is they come for two things. They come for opportunities and they come for accountability. Right now, there's so much noise and distraction and confusion in the marketplace that agents don't even know which way is up anymore. So they do know that they need opportunities. And if you interview agents at any brokerage right now, what you'll find is that very few of them are getting any opportunities. Even ones that were getting opportunities before, because of the tightening of the market and what we've gone through for the last couple of years, those agents, if they're not the rainmaker and they're part of somebody else's team or brokerage, those brokerages are competing against them for the deals. Those team leaders are taking more for themselves because they're all trying to get by, and it leaves those people that are lower or newer on the journey by the wayside. So every agent that came to me right now on my team came to me because of opportunities and accountability. And a lot of times it's, what do they want versus what do they need? So we know they want the opportunities, but we as leaders who have built teams before know they need the accountability. An opportunity without accountability will give you the same results that you have without the opportunity. But an opportunity with the right amount of accountability and the right supportive structure, where you're actually doing it to help the agent and trying to help the agent's goals become your goals, you can achieve anything. But you've got to get the trust from that person that the accountability is for them, not on them. And that's a little bit of a secret sauce, if you will, when you're running a team. Like, I've seen team leaders blow people out of the water because they just blast them with accountability, but they don't, it's the old adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So like, I make it deeply personal for my agents. Like, hey, I know why every person on my team is working. I know why they get up in the morning. I know what their personal why is. I know what they're trying to accomplish for their family, like, in depth. And I remind them of that when I'm having accountability or difficult conversations with them, because that's the reason that they're getting up. That's the reason that they're putting in the fight every day. And that's what it takes, man. There's a lot of noise in the industry. We have a lot of agents competing for fewer transactions than we've had in years. And, in order to get through the storm, we've got to really get honest with ourselves about what it takes.
Well, we're being inundated with different messaging because everybody wants a piece of this pie. Every coach, every trainer, we've never been in this industry. If you've been in it long enough, we've never been in a time where there's so much outside noise and pressure to buy this system. This will get you, the guaranteed leads. Don't pay us. We'll get you 10 closings and you don't pay until you close. Like all of that noise is just undo it this way, do it that way. It's just, it is mind blowing how much you get hammered in your feed right now if you actually have realtor in your profile on social media. So you're right, that noise is just, it's a lot. And I just want to clarify one thing. When you're talking opportunities, you're talking leads that are being provided by you, correct? Is that what you mean by
that? That is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Okay. And so I want to talk team size, because this becomes an issue too. Like in our market, we have one of the largest realtors in the world in our market. He's been number one in the world before. He's very close to number one again, and I like the guy. We're actually friends, but we're nowhere near that size. But that's okay for me. I don't want to be that guy. He's got a lot of headache. He's told me his biggest daily activity is managing his own stress. I don't want that life. So in your mind, is there a perfect size for a team, and what works best for a team? Because ultimately we need profitability. And what I've seen with teams is there's a ton of teams that aren't profitable. They may have a team that may look good online. They've got the trophies on the shelf. They've got all that stuff, but they aren't keeping any money. And I find too that most teams where the leader is in production, they are riding a pretty thin profit line.
Yeah, I would say the profits protect the people. So in order to have a team structure where you're not in production, you have to make profit, because that's why you're doing the thing. And if I'm not making profit, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to jump back into production, which is going to take out of your pocket. So we've got to have a healthy profit margin, and those profits protect the people. And I used to have that conversation with my agents all the time. I'm like, look, if the margins weren't what they are, then I'm going to step in. And what I find is when I'm looking at teams, if I take the leader or the broker out of production, I find that they're running a business that's not profitable, which is crazy, right? Like, why would we do all this and have all this overhead and all this, stress and headache, if you will, if it's not going to be a profitable enterprise? And the reality is most team leaders out of production, it's a non-profitable enterprise. So we've got to get clear on that and operate in a way that's good. I would suggest that without even knowing this person that's number one in the world in your market, I would suggest that there's probably a core value alignment between that person being number one in the world and their size and who they are. So we've got to be honest about who we are. What I find is that most teams that are, a layer or two below that top team in their market, they're actually the most profitable teams. They're under the radar. They're running a good business. They're not focused on vanity numbers and vanity reports. Because what will happen, and I was having this conversation last week with an agent, is if you get into that, like, we're top in our market, or we're like vying for that position, what often happens is to go from, say, number 3 in your market to number 1 in your market, you've got to do things that don't make business sense to hit those units. And that comes at a big hit to your profitability. I would much rather be the guy that's number 3, 4, or 5 in my market that runs the number 1 profit margin than be the number 1 in my market at the expense of my profits. Like, what are we really doing and what are we after? So these are just questions that you've got to get honest with yourself. And back to what we were talking about earlier, Ken, nothing happens until you start tracking it. And a lot of these guys aren't tracking it because the only thing they're focused on is the number 1 spot. Number 1 is fine if it's in alignment with our goals and standards around profitability.
And I think that's a great point. I mean, I think we need to start with profit, and not enough team leaders do, and not enough teams do. Profit is the most important thing. Otherwise, like you said, what are we doing this for?
Have you ever read Profit First by Mike McCallowitz?
I have read that. But it's the idea of any business. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, and so many people confuse this business with being a job. Well, no, it's a business. If you run it right, this is a business. This is just like, owning a grocery store. It's just like running an automotive shop. Like, there's a profit margin. There's a business system that you have to run. You have to run this like a traditional business, and it always starts with profit first. For sure. And we need to focus more on that. I don't think the industry is focused on that. They are more focused on the vanity numbers for sure.
The industry, right, is like, when we think of the industry, we like to put ourselves at the center or the top of that conversation. Like, hey, we're the agents, we're the team leaders, we're the brokers, we're the industry. The reality is we're not. And we're not, because we as the agents and team leaders are often not running well businesses. So the industry is actually the people that are selling to us. They're the platforms, they're the brokerage models, they're the people that are selling to us, and they are running good businesses that are highly profitable for the type of business they're in. And because of that, we become the cogs in the wheel to support those businesses. But we think we're the business. It's really, and that's part of the noise out there, is they know exactly how we operate and they know exactly what drives us, and they're constantly selling us that noise of, oh, you don't have to do anything, like leads will just fall in your lap and it'll be easy, and AI will make it so you don't have to do anything. It's like, well, not really. AI is not going to replace the real estate agent. The agent who's utilizing AI is going to replace the agent who's not utilizing AI.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So you're building this high performance team in Bozeman, Montana. You got people that are coming to you for opportunities, and they're happy and all that kind of stuff. If you're open to letting us look under the hood a little bit of what like your structure looks like and what you want to grow this team size to and that kind of stuff, that would be great. And then what you're seeing, from the brokerage side of things too, you've been at several different brokerages. You've seen, all these different platforms come and go, and we hear all the rumblings about the RE/MAXes of the world now and how much trouble those brick and mortars may be in the next few years. There's a lot of stories floating around that stuff right now. What are you seeing on the brokerage side? Because again, with 3,000 people in your organization, you've got people across all platforms.
Yeah. I mean, talk to brokerages every day. I'm going to have 2 conversations with independent brokers later today. Brokerages are struggling right now. The margins are getting thinner and thinner with each passing year. Models like EXP have come onto the scene, and they've hijacked the margin from these other brokerages because they're trying to compete with an old brokerage model in a new innovative space. And they're having to give up the little bit of margin they had in order to retain people because they have no other offer of value. So what's happening is these guys are getting tighter and tighter. They don't see any way for them to right their ship. They're having to add affiliated services like mortgage and title just to stay afloat. And even that's not working. The brokerage of the future is a brokerage that can operate on zero margin because there's an ancillary component or there's an affiliate side of it that allows them to share in additional revenues that's not tied to the agent transaction. And that's really going to upset the industry, and in my mind, going to continue to upset the industry. And it's going to push more and more of the old model, the old brokerage model, into new platforms like EXP is today. And there's just no way around it. I mean, that genie is never going back in the box. The industry is never going to go back to what it was, like it used to be. And agents are going to pick their head up and realize, like, why am I paying this agent tax to be at this brokerage who provides me this single layer of value when there's other models out here that will provide me multiple layers of value at lower cost?
Yeah, and I agree that the brick and mortars are going to struggle because even the agents that I've been talking to recently, and we talk to agents all the time, I can't believe how much those brick and mortars have actually changed their pay structure just to try and stay competitive. And I don't know how much longer they can last at that pay structure in this business. Like they're just on the path of destruction. That's what they are on, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, we've got about 9 minutes left. I want to open this up to any questions that anybody has, or John, if you want to share something else before we do that, I'm going to let you kind of take control here and tell me how you want the last 9 minutes to go. If you've got more you wanted to share or more you wanted to bring up. But if anybody's got any questions, I'd love you to hop in and ask them right now. Like, Sergey, do you have any questions for John at all?
At the moment, I just need to kind of digest on all the info I got, so no really questions yet. But if you keep in contact, I probably would have some questions for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
As of now, like many things you said that make sense. Some of them doesn't fit in my profile, but well, you know what? It's great to have this conversation, great to have this type of information, and down the road, I'm sure that we might come across and something work out. So, but for now, No questions.
Okay, awesome.
One of the things I always tell people is like, I never try to make my goals your goals. I never appreciated when a coach told me this is the only way to do something and it has to look like this. It's like, well, it could look like this, and this would be what the offspring of that would look like, and this would be what results you could expect based on my knowledge of doing it this way. But I think there's many ways to be successful in real estate. There's many ways to grow a successful team. What's most important, though, is it's in alignment with you and your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. There's nothing wrong with wanting to build a team that, serves you and a few team members at the highest level with the most amount of profitability to penetrate your market in a way that's going to provide for you and your family meaningful for years to come. And there's also nothing wrong with trying to come into a marketplace and dominate the market and then spread to 3 other sub-markets of that market. Like, both are fine. You just have to be clear about what it is that you're building. So whenever somebody gets on a call with me, I'm first trying to understand, where are you right now? What's working? What's not working? What are you trying to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years? Once I understand that person and what that is, then I can start to say, well, here's a couple of things. And if I were in your shoes, based on what I know, here's how I would get from where you are to where you want to be. And here's the pitfalls I would watch out for. Then if that makes sense for you, then we can have a deeper conversation about what that is. If anybody wants to do that with me, it's simple. You just go to johnmikesh.com. It's JOHNMIKESH.com. And you'll see a place where you can grab a strategy call with me there, and we can have that conversation.
Awesome. Okay, so let's wrap it. I'm just going to throw this at you really quickly. If I was to say to you, give me 10 things, 5 to 10 things that if you're building a high performance team today, what are the 10 things you're doing right now to get started? Let's wrap it.
Before I even get started, I would have my team agreement. So that's going to dictate, what it is that we have for you. I would have my lead management policy, how I want you to follow up with the leads. I would have my recruiting presentation, so it's articulating my value. And then I would have my weekly meeting structure in place and my accountability structure in place. Those 5 things you can launch with, and you could be like, this is what you're coming into, and this is how we do what we do.
Cool. How big are you going to grow your current team? What's the goal for that?
10 to 12. I'll cut it off at that. My main focus for growing my team now in Bozeman is just to kind of, reintroduce what's actually working today in a proven model in this area, continue to grow EXP in this area, provide value for agents that you can only provide in a team structure, and provide that value in a team structure where the team leader is not competing, which makes us unique to anybody else in the Bozeman marketplace. And selfishly, I have a daughter who's wanting to get into real estate and learn the ways. So I want to create something for her to come up into. And she actually just started with me as an ISA officially yesterday. So excited about bringing her into that.
So how hard was it, like that mindset you must have been in to go from another market to this market and start a team in a place you never did real estate before? How hard was it to get up and running?
I mean, we just launched this team, so it wasn't super hard. I really launched it because I was sitting down with agents who needed the team support structure, and there wasn't a team to put them on in this area that was willing to support the new agents. Like, yeah, there's other teams in the area and they'll take the, $10 million per year plus producers, but nobody wanted to take on the brand new agent who just got licensed. And I just feel like a heart for those people because I've built so many of them up before. And I said, well, if there's not a team to recruit these people to, then if it's going to be, it's up to me. So I created it.
Awesome, man. Good for you. And you're living in God's country too, which is great. So
appreciate the time, Ken. Thanks for the invite, and good to talk to you.
All right. Thanks everybody for hopping on today. We appreciate it. John, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Great insights. And as always, I just appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right.
You guys.
Bye-bye.